Hello guys, how are you doing today? Now listen, everything, what to believe right now? Personally, I'll give you my opinion on it when I'm done talking about it, but what the Fed's doing right now. The Fed has basically buoyed the markets by making it appear as though there's going to be no more interest rate hikes for all of 2019, and that this effort that they're doing with quantitative tightening, pulling $50 billion a month of liquidity from the system, that they're going to not do that anymore. They're basically going to go back and stop it. You know, this is basically what the markets are being buoyed on, is these hopes that they're actually going to do these things. You have to understand something. Neither of those two things has the Fed actually done yet. They're still pulling $50 billion of liquidity out of the system every month, and they're still planning 2 interest rate hikes for next year. So their words are not meeting their actions. But this buoying effect that we've seen of the markets recently, you know how the markets were falling off sharply there a couple months ago. This whole buoying effect is from the belief. Basically, it's a belief that the Fed is actually going to do this stopping. They're going to change direction, basically. Ever since 2008, with bringing interest rates down to zero and injecting $80 billion a month into the liquidity into the system, that's what buoyed the markets when the markets were at their bottom in 2008 and everything was going into crisis. So everything got buoyed up to where we are now. Tremendous amount of liquidity. We are at the end of an enormous credit cycle right now. We're at the end of this credit cycle. And everything is on pins and needles right now as to what the Fed actually does. How can we actually guess their actions based mostly on words and what the hopes are of the market right now? What could actually happen is exactly the reverse, or the Fed just might follow through and actually stop their quantitative tightening program. But what they've actually done is they've actually created a delay right now, based mostly on words, not on actions. Now, what they've created is a tenuous situation where the markets could go down sharply, or the markets could buoy higher, depending on the actual actions of the Fed or the actual outcome of what is going on right now. Another thing we see that's happened is that this whole government shutdown that's went on over the last number of months has actually in the end resulted in a cost of $6 billion. They could have built the wall for $5 billion, billion dollars less than the government shutdown actually costs. But we still don't have the wall, you know. So I don't think this was actually a good thing either, you know, because the wall would have created jobs and everything else, you know. But that aside from the point, here we have this this whole thing going on over in France. It's not going away. It's kind of moving. I think it's actually moving underground somewhat. There's probably underneath the surface, it's probably forming and starting to take some direction to it. The whole yellow vest movement and everything, probably underneath the surface where you can't see. And the same thing's happening with cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency's down right now. 3,500, basically been drifting along around the same price for Bitcoin, you know. And of course, Bitcoin's the leader of all the cryptocurrencies. We're seeing this underground action in the cryptocurrencies. What's happening is they're branching out and they're developing and making new cryptocurrencies that are faster than ever, and also we actually see the structure of an infrastructure being built underneath the surface even while the prices are down low. You know? Now another thing, gold and silver. Listen, what I was talking about earlier with the action the Fed takes is going to have everything to do with your price of gold and silver. If this really comes true that there is no more rate hikes in 2019, and if it comes true that the Fed actually starts reducing the amount that they're pulling of liquidity from the system, this will be extremely bullish for gold and silver. I'm just going to tell you, extremely bullish, and for cryptocurrencies. But if the Fed is, if this is all a head fake, and the Fed is just pulling the wool over our eyes and trying to make us feel good and giving us this hints that they're going to not raise interest rates, and it's all just a bunch of talk, and that they continue to pull $50 billion every month from the system, and they do 2 rate hikes next year, then that's going to be bearish for gold and silver and bearish for Bitcoin. And it could actually lead to a market crash, or at least a very steep drop-off in the markets. At which point, the Fed then would actually have to follow through on their actions of reducing their quantitative tightening program and stop raising interest rates. In fact, even possibly have to lower interest rates. So either way we go with this, if this is all just a head fake and it's all just talk from the Fed, right, then we could see gold and silver move a bit lower, and so cryptocurrencies too, before they'll move higher in the end. Because in the end, if this is all just a talk and all just a head fake, the markets will figure it out in the end. And we will see this rather large drop-off. We could actually see the beginning of the recession if this happens, if it's all just a head fake, if it's all just talk. We got to wait and see. So right now we're in a kind of a tentative period right now, where we're going to have to wait and see what the Fed does with their actions rather than just their words, coming later into the as the year starts to progress. I'm amazed at how good, really, that the Fed is at actually kicking this can down the road. But ultimately, we're coming to the end of the credit cycle. This has been the largest credit expansion in the history of the world. We're in uncharted territory right now. So starting tomorrow morning, going to be back doing a market report. And I know I don't have a green screen, so I'm going to be doing it like off of the computer screen as best I can. Here I'll be doing it probably around 4:30 in the afternoon, which is going to be 6 hours earlier East Coast, no, 7 hours earlier East Coast time. So I'm going to try to get in there as soon as the Dow Jones opens up and get the market report on. Listen, really appreciate my viewers out there, honest to gosh, you know, and I think we're coming up to a period in time where we're going to see an awful lot of changes happen very quickly because of the instability that's created in the system from all of this over leveraging. The system is just dying to deleverage, and the Fed is doing everything that they could do to stop the system from deleveraging, but eventually the system's going to have to deleverage. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.